So the concentration of fluid outside the cell is constant in a normal sample of fluid that's extracellular fluid from outside the body, whether it's blood or interstitial fluid in between organs, in between tissues. They're going to have sugar, potassium, calcium, oxygen, sodium, chloride, other things. Okay? Just to simplify the problem, when you're given a problem like this, where they tell you ecstasy can cause people to drink over 20 liters of water in 2 hours, that's a lot of water. That's 10 2-liter bottles in less than 2 hours. It's an immense amount of water. What you have to do is simplify the problem by doing something like I did here. I made a box. I said, that's the brain. Obviously, it's not the brain, but it represents the brain. Outside this neuron, this brain cell, is a bunch of stuff. I don't know what it is. It's salt and sugar. Mostly it's sodium and potassium and chloride and calcium. Okay? There's sugar out there too and all kinds of other things. But I'm just going to stick to one example, and I'm going to choose sodium chloride. Why? Because it makes my life easier. So outside the cell, it's 0.9% sodium chloride. If the cell is working normally, what is it inside? If the cell is working normally, if it's not swelling, it's not shrinking, it must be isotonic. So that means it's 0.9 inside as well as outside. Is that clear? Now you drink, so by the way, that means it's 99.1% water in this simplified example. So now I drink a lot of water, 20 liters of water in 2 hours. What happened to that fluid outside the cell? Well, it dropped, because of so much water, it dropped from 0.9 to 0.1. How did I calculate that? I didn't. I just made an example. Because that's not what my question is. My question is, what do I think is going to happen? Well, I think if I add more water without adding more salt, then the concentration of solutes is going to go down. So instead of 0.9, it's going to be something less than 0.9. Correct? There is a way of calculating a number, but we don't need to worry about that. That's not the question that I'm being asked. So now from 0.9, I dropped to 0.1. What happened inside? The inside's still 0.9, so outside's what? I made it 0.1, so what does that make outside? Hypotonic. If outside's hypotonic, where's water going to go? Inside the cell. As water rushes in, what happens to the cell? Expands, swells up, eventually lyses. It bursts or lyses. That's how people die this way, by drinking too much water. This is normally not possible. Normally, if you drink a lot of water, you vomit it. Your body knows it can't take that much water in that quickly. But when you're on drugs, who knows? One of the many dangers of drugs. So that's a simple diagram. That's how you tackle a problem like this. You are not brain surgeons. You do not have experience in brain anatomy. You're not going to be able to do physiology and come up with specific numbers. That's silly. But on a problem like this, you can still answer the problem, couldn't you? The one thing you need to know is edema was swelling. And all of you answered this problem, or at least all the ones that I saw and heard as you were talking in groups as I came around. I heard you saying the right things. So good job on you. Now work on the second problem. I'm not saying you have to listen to those people, but I would if I were you. So what happens is that these organisms called paramecium are single-celled organisms that eat bacteria. They eat bacteria. And they swim around in a fairly diverse environment as they swim around in a pond or a river or whatever. Generally, a freshwater body of fresh body of water. What happens is that this is a protist. It has a mouth. Has actually, interestingly, a lot of protists have 2 nuclei, not 1. Where eukaryotes have a single nucleus, right? Like our cells have a single nucleus, plants have a single nucleus, but these have 2 nuclei. They have a macro and micro. Some of these ciliates have multiple nuclei. And that's not really important for our discussion. Just know that's why we call these a different group of organisms that we call protists. Protists are eukaryotes. You should add this to your notes or to your handout, just to make sure that you understand what you're talking about. Other examples that you might hear about in the news are things like amoebas that are also predators. They also eat bacteria. Amoebas can actually cause disease. They also have contractile vacuoles. These are just like the amoeba sisters is correct. Yeah, that's why they call themselves the amoeba sisters. They're PhD, they're doctors, they have doctorates in biology. I don't know if they're actually sisters, but they do create a really cool educational YouTube videos. They're really, really interesting and very accurate. So here we have a paramecium, not an amoeba, but a paramecium. They're both protists. You see that they have an anal pore. What do you think they do in the anal pore? They get rid of waste. Here they eat. Here they get rid of their waste. They have all the other organelles that you've learned about. But they have a special organelle that we don't have, that plants don't have. Plants don't need it because they have a cell wall that helps them regulate if their cells start to swell up too much. They have the cell wall to stop them from bursting. They can't move, so they really don't like not being able to regulate it. These guys are moving, but they move slowly, obviously. They only have tiny little cilia. They're single-celled organisms. So if you dump a bunch of water into a pond and change the outside here to something that's less concentrated, so outside's hypotonic. In fact, most of the time, so they're freshwater organisms. Most of the time, outside is, what is it? Hypotonic outside. That means water's constantly rushing in. Constantly water's rushing into this cell because it's hypotonic. So it's like in a boat, if you have a leaky boat, you're on the ocean, what are you going to keep doing? Pumping that water out, or you're going to sink. So this cell has this pump. It uses ATP. This uses energy. This does not by osmosis. Osmosis is what's getting the water into the cell. Some of you just have to tweak that. I saw your answer. I loved your answer, but tweak that answer. Change that answer a little bit. Osmosis is allowing the water to come in because this is a freshwater organism. Outside is hypotonic. Water's coming into the cell. Too much water. The cell would die if it didn't get the water out. That means it's going to take water from low to high. I'm sorry. That's not right. That's right. Low, it's going to take water from water's low to high, to water's high. Does that make sense? Because remember, tonic means solute. So it's low solute outside. That means it's high water. Correct? All right. So in order to go from low to high, you need energy. You need to use it when you are squeezing your muscles. What do you need? Energy. To squeeze, to contract, you need energy. You eat food. So does the paramecium. The food, the actual use is ATP. ATP. So this is an example of active transport. Not passive, active. And that's what we're going to focus on Tuesday. And then over winter break, I'm going to give you a practice test for your final as extra credit. I do not want you to worry about doing it during Thanksgiving break. I say winter break, I meant Thanksgiving break. During that few days you have, that weekend, you can do the practice test. Just do it. It's not for a score. It's just to be a reflection. It's a formative assessment. And if you do it, you'll get extra credit. Okay? But we're going to go over active transport on Monday. Read your chapter, for Pete's sakes. Yeah. No, do not turn that in, and I'm giving you the answers to your problems. I'm giving you the answers to your problems. You need to take them home. I'm not grading these yet. I just want you to take them home, reflect, look at what answers you made. Where did you make mistakes? How were you accurate? How were you not? And we'll finish this topic on Tuesday.